Next up, we're going to talk about slipping and scoring. So let me show you where to find the slip. In the glazing area lockers, we have 2 lockers labeled slip. One is for the dark clay and one is for the light clay. When you open this up, you're going to find a big container and then hopefully small containers. If there aren't any small containers, you are capable of going and getting one of our little containers, filling it up, and make sure you label it with whichever kind of slip it is. And then when you're done, you can just put it back in and the next person can use it. From there, you might wanna come over and grab a paintbrush, grab the sides depending on what you're going to use it for. You will also need a needle tool and the 2 pieces of clay you are gonna slip and score together. Now, it is best to slip and score clay together when they are leather hard. So this clay definitely still has moisture in it. There's a smidge of flexibility, but for the most part, it is, you know, if I bent this enough, it would break. So what I'm going to do is I am going to slip and score one of these little stars on top of this big star. First, make some marks of where you want to put the 2 pieces together, and then you're going to score. And when you score, you want to really dig in to the surface of that clay. You don't want to make just really light scratches. We call these little chicken scratches. That is not going to help the clay stick together. So really dig into that clay. And then you're going to do that on the opposite piece. Take your slip. You're gonna use the slip of the same clay body, and you're gonna put some on there. Now, slip is just watered down clay, but we like to use slip other than water. It will shrink a little bit less, help prevent some cracking. And then we're gonna score that again. So score, slip, score. We're gonna score this piece again also. And then we can line that up. And we really want to press that, kind of wiggle those 2 pieces of clay together. If you just like really gently laid it on there, it's not gonna stay stuck. You don't want a ton of slip squishing out. If some slip does come out, you can take a damp brush and rub that away. This is a great way to get into some of those small spaces. If it's a little bigger, you might be able to use a sponge. You don't want to make it really wet. Again, that would add to potential cracking. So there you have your slipping and scoring. Now, it's best when you slip and score 2 pieces together to let it dry slowly. So you might want to cover this up, you know, overnight or over the weekend, or lightly cover it so it can dry slower, and so that slip area can have time to kind of meld in with the leather hard clay. It's also crucial that when you're putting 2 pieces of clay together, that they are at the same dryness state. So you don't ever want to put a dry piece of clay and slip and score it onto a wet piece of clay. Because what happens is the clay has, one piece has already started shrinking, the dry piece has already started shrinking, and the wet piece has not. And so they're gonna start shrinking at different rates, and that will cause it to just pop off. When you're putting your slip on, you don't want to rub this like back and forth so much that you're closing up the score marks that you made. You also don't have to put a ton of slip on there. Just a real nice layer. Then you're gonna go back and score the opposite way. Now again, if I were trying to do this when it was really wet and I was handling this clay in this fashion, the star would get all bent out of shape, the slab would get all bent out of shape. So it's much nicer to do it when it's at this leather hard state. So again, I'll line those up. I'm gonna really work those in. What you're doing is you want that clay to really like mess up the surfaces so you can really work them in to make them become one unified piece of clay. And again, I would not be able to put that much force on it if I hadn't let it get leather hard. So again, I'm gonna come in with a paintbrush. I'm gonna get some of that water off. That was way too much water to add to it. Get rid of that slip. Ideally, we want to not be able to tell where we slipped and scored it together. So you want to make sure this is all nice and cleaned up and that all your marks are gone. The only difference would be is if you wanted to show those seams. Some artists choose to show those seams, and that's kind of a different story. Again, this sponge is barely wet. It's almost just like a light sanding. There you have it, slipping and scoring.